I began this project with some poplar that I had in my shop, so I cut it to a rough length over at my miter saw, and then I began milling it down in the planer. I need to laminate 3 pieces together to get the thickness that I need, so I apply some wood glue to each face and I spread it evenly, and then I put the 3 pieces together and then apply a gracious amount of wood clamps. After removing the wood clamps, I take the whole dried assembly over to my jointer and I begin jointing each face to ensure that each of those 3 pieces of wood are flush to each other and that the whole face is one solid, clean face. I do that with both the large stock glue up, which will be the stamp portion, as well as this small stock glue up, which will become the handle. I then clean up the edges of each glue up at my miter saw to get a straight and clean face on the ends. Next, I cut off some corners on the handle glue up piece. This will just help it and make things easier as I move over to the lathe to begin turning it down. The closer you can get a piece to a circle before actually making it a circle is less material that you have to remove as you're using the lathe, and it's ultimately going to be safer and less work for you. Now I find the center of my glued up piece and I drill a hole that will allow this chuck to screw in the end and hold it securely on my lathe as I prepare to work. After the drive center is in place, I put the tailstock in place, secure everything in my lathe, ensure that it is rolling and turning smoothly, and then begin the lathe process. You can see my lathe jumped around a little bit because it wasn't a perfect circle, but then it steadied out as I got more round with my stock. So got the stamp handle shape that I liked using a various amount of tools, lathe tools that I have, just kind of working it, trying to get a nice rounded stamp handle. After I got it to the shape that I like, I went through the grits, was sanding this thing down to get it super smooth. I then remove it from my lathe and I head over to the bench and just sand the tip of that handle just to finish off that rounded profile. Here I'm at the bandsaw cutting off the tailstock piece that I don't need, and then I move over to my belt sander and sand that edge flat. Off camera, I used my CNC machine to carve the approved design into the back side of my stamp piece. After routering that out, I used black epoxy to pour and fill those voids. After that epoxy dried, I moved into this sanding portion, just getting all that extra epoxy off and sanded smooth flush to the face of the stamped glue up. I now find the center of the top of my stamp piece in both directions, and then I drill a hole that will allow for a dowel to be used as a referencing pin. I do the same thing on the handle piece here, and then I apply that dowel into place and begin the glue up. After glue is applied and everything is in place, I just use some wood clamps the best I can to hold the 2 pieces together and clean up the extra glue squeeze out just using a shop rag. Now I begin the full sanding process. I start at 60 grit, I work my way up through the grits all the way to 3000 on the face of this thing. With that epoxy, it really helps it to be super smooth, and then I move into my wipe-on poly here that I use for finish on this stamp. After the finish dries, this project is complete, and here is the final outcome. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Find more projects on my website, link in the description.